You're about to listen to the Complete Developer Podcast, the podcast by coders and for coders about all aspects of life as a developer.
I'm Will, the curmudgeonly experienced developer.
And I'm Beej, the optimistic newbie developer. Welcome to another episode of Complete Developer Podcast. Before we get started, Will, what have you been fighting this week?
I'm not exactly fighting. I'm getting some end of the year bits and pieces kind of tied together. You know, everything's somewhat calmed down at work.
That's good.
But I'm doing a lot of work on the house. I know you looked in the server room and saw it's a bit of a mess right now. I bought a rack mount battery backup. I'm trying to get my server rack cleaned up. It's more I'm irritated with the little cheapy UPSs that I knock over all the time when I'm fiddling on the rack, and I'm trying to get everything straightened out. So I bought this big battery backup, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to hook this up and I'll be set. And it runs on 220. So I've now got to get the electrician out. And, you know, a buddy of mine and I are running network cable. We're just going to wire from the server rack to my office. I mean, I actually do have a wire, but if you notice, it's just kind of dangling in the open air.
Well, I remember you were talking about wiring the entire house at one point.
And we're going to do that eventually. We just want to get this one working first.
Okay.
Because I'm kind of showing him how to crimp the cables and how to punch everything down and all that. Like, I can do it. I just really, really don't want to. And I realize I've been putting this off for a year. Like I've had 1,000 feet of cable in a box in the closet for a year, and I haven't done anything with it. And I realized, like, psychologically, I just don't want to do it. Like, I want to show somebody else how to do it, and then it like happen, and I pay, and it not be my problem. As I used to run cables and all that stuff, and I just realized I just really don't enjoy that at all. And yeah, so you know he's going to help me run that, and I'm going to have to get an electrician out here for the other.
Yeah. And
of course I bought some hardware upgrades. So like I got another 4 terabyte drive, and I also got some new case fans. I know everybody can hear the case fan in my computer that's malfunctioning. That would have been replaced. However, I've had problems with my laptop that I converted to Windows 10, and I'm not comfortable enough with it yet to say that I trust Windows 10 for being able to develop.
Yeah, I understand.
Most things seem to be working, but like the VPN isn't working.
I struggled with that when I switched over to Windows 10.
Yeah, and it's probably something dumb, and I think maybe you and I can just take the laptops and go to McDonald's and get on the wireless and probably fix it in like 15 minutes. But, you know, once that's working and I verify that everything's working, then I won't feel so bad about pulling this box apart. It turns out that, you know, the 3 fans, I'm going to replace all 3 of them because I'm going to be in there. And I'm a little jittery about doing that when my laptop isn't quite working like I want it to, because I don't want to be down.
Yeah,
if you know something happens. And so I'm just kind of sitting in, you know, and waiting until I get the VPN working and make sure everything's valid, and then I'll do that, you know, after making sure this one's backed up. I bought all new fans. I got some quiet, you know, the expensive little Thermaltake fans that are like, they're like $15 a piece. I got 3 of them.
I know your big thing when you showed them to me was the LEDs are red.
Yeah, like I hate blue LEDs. They just look sinister to me, and I don't know why that. There's like something deep psychological about that.
That's really funny because I like blue. Like I have all of my clocks and like everything I can get is blue LEDs. Yeah,
that's not me at all. And I finally got to thinking about it. I'm like, okay, I'd rather just go ahead and fix this and not have the blue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, since I'm going to be in there anyway.
Well, yeah.
And the other 2 are starting to get a little noisy as well. So I might as well just replace them all, be done with it. And then I got the 4 terabyte drive that I was going to stick in the server, and I think I may just put it in the desktop instead. So that's all I got. How about you?
Well, I've been listening to a lot of Motorhead lately. As you guys probably know, if you're big into classic rock or heavy metal, Lemmy passed away.
They're just all going now.
I know. Though I will say this, for for someone like me, it's been a bittersweet week because that happened, but I also heard that Guns N' Roses is doing a reunion tour next year.
Interesting.
2016 reunion tour with Axl and Slash. That's going to be, I mean...
Yeah.
I'm excited about that, but I was going to say rest in peace, Lemmy, but I don't think that's appropriate. I think keep the party going, Lemmy, is more appropriate.
I mean, he was definitely a complex individual. I mean, it's one of those things that they say that the muses love broken vessels.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you see that a lot with the really major superstars that they had a lot of hurt and a lot of things.
He kept going, and he was pretty old.
Yeah, speaking of rockers, I actually ran into Steven Tyler. My wife and I were shopping for bedding. We bought a king size bed, and we were like shopping. We're like doing the restoration hardware thing and sitting around there, and she's like, "What do you think about these sheets versus these?" And I'm sitting there going, I got nothing. I'm a dude. Like, I'm glad to have a place to sleep and have some room.
Yeah, exactly.
And, he was in there shopping for something. And I almost felt sorry for him. Well, I guess I kind of did feel sorry for him because people just wouldn't leave him alone. And, he couldn't do anything for 2 minutes without somebody bugging him.
Well, I'd be bugging him asking for his daughter's phone number, but, I got a thing for Liv Tyler. I mean, anyways.
Yeah, but
there's a lot going on in the music world this week. Christmas was this past week, and had a lot of fun with the family. I finished the project I've been working on for my nieces, which was the Raspberry Pi computer.
At the last minute.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in IoT. So why don't we go ahead and roll that wonderful music, and we'll get right into it.
Sounds like a plan, man.
This week for IoTs, I've got something a little special for you guys. Christmas was just recently, and I know I've talked about the computer that I built for my nieces, and so I'm going to kind of go over the build that I did for that machine. Just going to hit the highlights because I am writing a detailed blog post, and you can get all the details there, as well as all the links. So I'll put a link to the blog post in the show notes, and then you can see all the links there. So what I did was, this was basically building my niece's first Raspberry Pi based computer. And so starting off with the hardware, it was a pretty simple setup. All the parts can be purchased from Amazon.com. And when I add them up, they totaled around $80. I didn't spend that much because I already had some of the parts. And so I think I totally spent $60 on this. So the parts that I purchased was the Raspberry Pi 2 Model B. That was $35. The power cable, I got the Happer's Raspberry Pi with the on-off switch so that you're not constantly plugging and unplugging the micro USB.
Oh, that's nice, because, that whole vampire power, and then you have the possibility of damaging the board, too. Plugging and unplugging, especially with small children.
Mm-hmm. I bought 2 of them so I could get one for myself. And then the keyboard, I'm going to talk about this keyboard in another segment of IoTs because it's really awesome. It's the iPassport keyboard touchpad combo, and this can be used for smart TVs, for Xbox, lots of different things, and it's the perfect size for their little hands. My brother-in-law said he was going to go buy one for himself to use with their home entertainment system. He liked it so much. It's battery powered, and it comes with a Bluetooth dongle that you can plug into the USB port. So you can turn the keyboard on and off, or you can plug it in to the USB port, another USB port, and charge it. Then the stuff that I already had was the HDMI cable and an 8 gigabyte micro SD card. I also bought them a Raspberry Pi case from the raspberrypi.org because honestly that one looked the coolest for them. For the software, I started off with the Raspbian Jessie distro. So what I did this in Windows. I used the Win32 disk imager.
Yep. That's how I had to do the one that I had around here for a while.
And I put the image on the 8 gigabyte micro SD card. Alternatively, I could have used Linux. With that, each of my nieces received their own user account, a restricted user account. And my sister was given a sudoer account, along with the one that comes with it, the Pi account. Of course, anyone tried to hack that, I did change the password on that one, so...
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you one thing that I didn't get to do that I really wanted to, was I wanted to put the GNOME Nanny on there, which is a really neat program that would let my sister set times for when they could be on, what they could access, and would also kind of act as a firewall for them too, for when they get on the internet. Unfortunately, I could not find one that was supported anymore. Once I had everything on there, I cloned the disk to my laptop using the Linux DD command. On there, I put a group of educational games for their age range called Child's Play.
Okay.
And it's really cool.
I've heard of that at some point.
I showed it to my 5-year-old niece, and before I could finish explaining how to use the keyboard, she was already in playing games. And then I also created a couple of web apps, found a Scratch tutorial, because it comes with Scratch.
Okay.
And I got that, and then the website that I built for them that has games I've written, I put that as a desktop icon for them, too.
That's probably, they're going to look back at that, and that's going to be the neatest present they ever got.
They were so excited about it. It was a toss-up between whether they wanted to play on that or play on my Xbox.
Wow.
This past week, yeah.
So we had Kindle Fires.
Yeah.
For all three of the girls. And
I also got them a couple of books, because my older niece, the 5-year-old, wanted to learn to code like her Uncle BJ. And so I got her a workbook for coding with Scratch. And I actually bought 2 of them, one for her and one for me, so that we can go through it together. And I also got them the Hello Ruby Adventures in Coding book, which is it's a really neat. It's not really about coding directly. It just it's this adventure story where each of the characters kind of represents a different area of computing. Like the penguin in the story represents Linux and behaves like Linux. The girl named Ruby.
Does it slap you with a fin and tell you to read the manual? Is that how that works?
To be honest, I haven't read the book. I got it and I wrapped it pretty much as soon as I got it. I wish I'd taken the time to read the book, but
since this is the last episode of the year, we're going to discuss some of the things that have happened during 2015. Kind of look back at the year, and then we're going to get into what mine and Beej's New Year's resolutions are.
Yeah, last week we talked about goal setting, and we gave some kind of generic examples. Well, this week we're going to give you our goals for the following year.
Yeah, and this is kind of putting it on the line for us too, because we know that we're going to have people listening that are probably going to, at the end of the year, ask, what did you do?
Yeah, and what we're hoping to do is to follow up along the year, and as we accomplish each goal or as we hit each point in our goals, be able to discuss that.
Yeah. So going back on 2015, we kind of broke down the months as far as what happened, and January was really quiet, I think, for both of us.
Yeah, I was looking for a job and studying at the time. So
yeah, and then February, you had a birthday.
Yes, woohoo! I got older.
Yeah, which beats the alternative.
That's true. That's true.
And March is where things got a little interesting for me because I had a full-time position and I got downsized. And we were actually, Beach came with me to a Microsoft event.
I remember that,
and, I didn't drive because he crashed here at the house and we drove over from there because it was just easier.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't even have my car with me. And so he had to drive me to my work, which was like 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
And then my house was another 30 minutes from there. And for me to get the talk about being downsized. And
I remember I was sitting out in my truck in the parking lot, parking garage, just sort of waiting. And then you called me and said, hey, can you come help me?
Help me clean my desk out.
Yeah.
And, this was a situation where there were financial reasons that happened. It wasn't, it wasn't any kind of, I didn't get fired. I got downsized. And then we get this was sort of strange, although it's not entirely unexpected because I had been doing some side contract work, but we get in the car and as soon as we got clear of the garage where I could make a phone call, I called the people I was working with on my side project. And so I was literally, I guess from the time I left the building to when they were like, oh, we'll just bring you on full time was 12 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I hadn't even called my wife to tell her I was downsized yet.
No.
And so I get home and I said, well, I got some good news and some bad news. And she goes, okay, well, what is it? And I said, well, the good news is I've got some extra money because I got a severance.
Yeah.
And she goes, did you get fired? I said, no, I got downsized. And she goes, well, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to be working full time from home. And she's like, you got somebody paying you? And I said, yeah. And she goes, well, why did you tell me?
Sounds like something she'd say.
And I'm like, well, so you realize why I'm like sitting around the house and stuff and working? I don't know. Because it actually worked out to be a pay raise and everything. So it was,
it worked out in your favor.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And, April and May, of course, I did ramp up a little bit on Agulus, which is my side project, because especially, working from home when you can start at 7 o'clock in the morning and, eat a little sandwich from the refrigerator for lunch, you can get a full day in and then you can do something else. And I have a lot of, really, really heavy hours in through there.
I know April is when I started working at the insurance agency.
Yeah.
Because I had taken, I guess, in March I did take the insurance exam and started selling insurance in April. And then May is when I officially started interning with you.
Yeah, I guess it's official. I don't know how you'd put it because it's not that you're an intern. It's you're more like a
Padawan and you're the mentor.
Yeah, or like an apprentice kind of situation. And I run stuff by you and, work with you on ideas. Like you're not building code for me exactly, although we do stuff on the podcast because we're partners on that. So it's...
May is when you first referred to me as an intern.
Yeah, there wouldn't... I mean, because there's not a really good way to put that, especially like on LinkedIn. It's like, well, they're a... apprentice, they don't have a concept of that because it's for tech jobs, which is unfortunate. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, in June, that's when we started working on the idea of the podcast. That's when you started kind of pushing that. And it took us a little while because we wanted to make sure we had the website together. We wanted to have a good process. And
we wanted to have everything down before we published our first episode.
Before we told anybody, really. Yeah. That way, too, we could... if it turned out to be something we just couldn't do, we could bail and not look like idiots. But, we started on, the podcast, actually working on it in June, and you built, I think that's when we deployed the WordPress site. You started...
Yeah, we started working on that.
It wasn't really a whole lot of I mean, I showed you how to use the Chrome debugger and then turned you loose, and I was going to come back. And then I came back, and I'm like, well, I'll have a Coke. I guess I don't really have to do anything.
Yeah, I think August is around the time that the website was fully up and running, and we had all the plugins and everything.
Yeah, we got everything set up.
I set it up, and then I tinkered with it, and we played around with the background and the color scheme and just some stuff like that. But
mobile layout, I remember that.
Oh, the mobile layout was
awful.
Mm-hmm.
Mobile always is, though. Well, really, just dealing with different screen sizes.
Yeah,
is it's better now than it used to be, but that's not really saying a whole lot.
I heard somewhere that Google is going to start docking or has started docking you for not having a mobile friendly site.
They do for mobile search results.
Okay.
because it looks like crap on that device.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
That way it's more adaptive to whatever is typically searching for it. So yeah, and then September we actually started publishing the podcast, and that was that seems like that's so much further ago than it actually is.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty good, because the typical half-life of a podcast is like, I think 7 or 8 episodes.
Really?
Most people quit.
Well, I will say this, a podcast, I listened to the first 2 episodes. It's called Hacked.
Yeah.
And first 2 episodes, I was like, I liked it because it was a little bit campy. They have creepy music playing in the background and stuff. And that's the kind of stuff that I like. I enjoy that about it. But they had 2 episodes back in October, and then they just stopped.
Yeah.
No word or anything. And I was like, well, they're too bad. I really liked it. That's one that just didn't make it. And then they just published an episode last week. And at the end of it, they said, yeah, thanks for those of you guys that stuck around, because they had some life stuff come up, and that happens.
Yeah, there's one that I like, the Calzumius Software podcast, which is about small business, programming related, and it's real random, and we wanted to make sure we didn't do that. And, we kind of had a regular cadence, and we don't miss and all that. We planned ahead a long time before we did this. We were very successful on this.
I think we had 16 episodes in our backlog to record when we started.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to have at least 3 months of episodes.
Yeah. And we didn't have them recorded beforehand, but we had the ideas down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we basically drank beer and spitballed ideas until we had that.
Mm-hmm.
And then around October, I know you moved your blog to Azure from Blogger.
Yeah. I put my blog on a WordPress site on Azure, and I really like Azure. It has a lot of things that I've hosted a few websites with, one on GoDaddy and one on 1&1.
Yeah.
And both of them are very good.
But they don't beat Azure by anything.
No.
Now, and the other thing we did, of course, back in October is, I had a birthday.
Yeah, you got a year older.
I made it another year without dying. I think that's a plus. And also went to Code Newbie Atlanta and met quite a few people, including some that are probably listening to the podcast right now.
Yeah, we made some friends down there. I know a couple of people I keep in touch with regularly.
Yeah.
Got to meet Saran from Code Newbies podcast, and I've been listening to that. Well, it started right around the time I started studying code, so I've been listening to it since probably one of the first episodes.
And then, of course, November, you had your fiasco in New York City where you were gone for 2 weeks. And we were trying to figure out how we were going to get the podcast out, because we had bits and pieces that, we have some that we record beforehand, like the main episode body. Mm-hmm. And then we have the intros that we record the week of so that it's a little bit more current. And we realized, oh crap, we've got to record. We got to somehow record. And we actually used Cisco's WebEx, and it worked like a champ.
It really did, because it made editing really easy too, because we were able to record individually on our own machines, and then I had the WebEx, which we could have used that. It wouldn't have been as good a quality as our individual recordings.
Yeah, it was good for you to sync it, made it easier.
Yeah, I was able to sync it and with the WebEx, and then when you were talking, my end was silent, and when I was talking, your end was silent. So all I had to do was just go in there, kind of sync things up, cut out the coughs and sneezes and things like that, and mix them.
And then, of course, you got your first paid freelancing gig, because a client of mine called me up and wanted his blog, which I set up for him, converted to be able to host a podcast. And he was like, "Oh, I saw you did this with yours and all this," and I'm on the phone driving down the road, and I'm like, I'm going to have to call BJ. And that actually worked out pretty well.
Yeah,
he seems to be pretty happy, and you've learned a lot as you've gone through it.
I have. One thing I'll say for those of you guys that are building WordPress sites for clients, it is easier to go set up like a free WordPress site to show them as an example than to try and build a wireframe.
Yeah.
Because you're able to really move stuff around and see what WordPress will and won't do.
Yeah, and that was an important lesson for you to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, this month it's December.
Yes, and I am Santa Claus.
Yeah.
No,
You've been dyeing your beard and your hair, and well, if you see the pictures of us on the website, a friend of BJ's agreed to take those pictures for us as long as he would dress as Santa around December.
Yeah, no, she does she's a photographer, and it was actually, technically that was back in November. It was Black Friday. She does a Santa and pajamas photo shoot.
Okay.
And
I didn't know what the deal was. I knew you'd worked a deal and you had to dress as Santa, and I didn't have to really do anything, so I didn't worry about it.
Yeah.
Kind of a simple man like that. And so with that, I think it's probably a good time to get into your resolutions. Beach and I both had a half dozen resolutions for the new year. And so I guess we'll let you go first, and then I'll do mine.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
To start off, I will have a junior development job by the end of February. And this is something I've already been working on. I have 2 potentials here in town, and one out a little outside of town, and then
more up north.
Yeah, more up near where my sister lives in Ohio.
Yeah, and that's the tricky part here in Nashville, is because of all the healthcare. A lot of these places do not want junior devs just because of all the security, and well, frankly, they make it boring a lot of times too. So they're going to run people off.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can do it.
Oh, I'm sure I can. And with the healthcare, the thing is, I've got a background in healthcare, so I already kind of know a lot.
Yeah,
about
you've got a leg up, and I think that you can use that.
So, with that goal in mind,
so if anybody out there is looking to hire a junior dev in Nashville, talk to us, because we got one.
But with that goal in mind, I would like to move closer down to towards Nashville, or wherever it is I end up getting a job. I want to be moving closer by July.
Yeah, and I think honestly, once you get a job, once you're a month in, you should probably be able to get something.
Yeah, I just need to save up a little bit.
Yeah, you need to get ahead, but you'll be fine.
Next, I would like to attend at least one coding conference this year, preferably out of state coding conference. I think that'd be very interesting. That'll probably be towards the end of the year, because my other goals are going to take up my time and money.
Well, and that way too, you'll be a little bit more prepared. And you might also try to see, now Code Mash, which happens in January, is excellent. Bar none. It's the best one I've ever been to. But here's the problem. The day that tickets go on sale, like, you need to be waiting by the computer. The tickets sell, they sell out in like an hour.
Wow.
And it's like 1,200 slots. They're just gone.
Huh.
And I'm going to a conference in April
you are,
myself. So I think it's, of course, mine is more towards the marketing and the entrepreneurial side now. But
really, what I want to do is I really want to meet my heroes over at .NET Rocks.
Agreed.
So try to get to a conference that they're at.
Yeah, and just like run up to them with like some single malt scotch.
I want to get a T-shirt that says "Golf clap for you, sir."
Yeah,
have them autograph it.
Yeah, no, I love that podcast. Those guys do such a good job.
They've been around since what, 2001?
2002.
They launched it at the tail end of 2002, and I've probably listened to, good grief, I may have listened to up to a third of their episodes.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of episodes. Something. Yeah, because there's been stuff I'm not in that sector.
Mm-hmm.
And plus for a long time, listening to podcasts was kind of not as easy as it is now.
That's true,
because they had podcasts really before podcasting was a thing. It's like, okay, here's an audio blog. It was basically what theirs was.
Yeah, it was that, or internet radio.
Yeah,
it was what it was called for a while there. Speaking of blogging, I plan on getting my recreational mathematics blog set up and have at least 12 posts by August. I'm working with my sister and possibly some of the other math teachers that she knows. And we're wanting to do at least... Cool. What's that?
I think that's really cool. Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
We're wanting to do at least one recreational mathematics post a month, and then do weekly challenges. The idea is for students, mostly algebra through like trigonometry, calculus level.
Yeah.
But to have that as a way for them to go and work on some problems. Like there'll be a problem one week, the next week we'll have the solution for that problem, and they can do each problem and potentially get extra credit or help with this or that in their schoolwork.
Yeah.
So it's a really kind of lofty idea, but it's something I think that is attainable and that we can do.
That'll be pretty interesting. And you're building. You said you were building that in C#, ASP.NET, and in Hibernate, right?
Yes.
So it's very similar to some stuff that you and I have been working on that's kind of behind the scenes, and I think that will push your skill level up a lot.
Well, I know I've already noticed some of the stuff that, for example, like when we were pair programming this past weekend, a lot of stuff that you were showing me, I was like, yeah, I understand your frustration because I've done that.
Using ASP.NET 5 with all the crap with the packages and not being able to link a library in there. Like I never was able to get a library referenced. Mm-hmm. And so I just stopped and I went back.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, this product is, it's a release candidate, but it's not ready for prime time and I'm not going to use it until it is.
That makes sense.
That's something you learned with Microsoft is like if you open it up and it's crap, you back away and you do something else for a while. Mm-hmm. And hopefully they'll fix it or the product will die on the vine. And either way, you saved your time.
Going right along with blogging, I want to increase my blog posts to one a week. And I plan on writing those in advance.
I had that goal last year and I did it for a while. And then, of course, I just got absolutely slammed and just couldn't. I haven't been able to write since, I think, August.
Well, something that I've noticed is when I'm writing our emails that go out, because we send out kind of a post based on the episode to our email subscribers. And when I'm writing that, it has extra information and stuff. And it's like a blog post. And I was like, well, I could turn some of these into blog posts almost.
Yeah, you really could. And one thing I think I'm going to do with mine, if I get back to it, is more long form. So instead of having a weekly blog post, like have a really in-depth, long articles, because I think that's an area where there's not as much competition to drive up your your rankings and all. And I think that would work better. Plus, I'm kind of long-winded anyway. Nobody noticed.
I edit the podcast, I've noticed.
Yeah.
Once you get going, you are long-winded.
Yeah. And I think that's good to have the weekly posts written in advance because you need to have a similar release cadence to what we do with the podcast.
That's what I'm planning on doing. And I'm also hoping that I can be able to, in some instances, especially when I do the outline for the podcast, kind of sync up the blog post and the podcast.
Yeah, I think I would really like for you to do that actually, because you could get a lot more detail and kind of side notes and a lot more interesting stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of things we can't cover because it's an audio only medium that we're in.
Yeah,
and you could really cover that pretty well either in a blog post or in a video or something along those lines. So yeah, shoot, that's a heck of a good goal.
And my final one is something I've already kind of been working on, but I'm going to begin the process of starting a business. So as part of that project level goal or lifetime goal of having my own business, my goal for next year is to build the business website. I already have the domain name for it, and I just need to build it up. I'd kind of like to avoid just throwing together a WordPress site for it. I really want to show my abilities, which is why I'm building the Rec Math blog first.
Yeah, I guess like my advice to you on that is to do it in WordPress, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because you got a lot of talent in WordPress.
Yeah.
Especially like what I would like to see you do, and this is me editorializing, and you'll probably cut this out, but maybe you won't. What I think you should do, and what I think the listeners might even like to see, is for you to turn your WordPress skills into something where you get money on that. You can specialize in setting up podcast websites for people and getting them through the entire process of, how do you record? How do you get all the bits and pieces together? What's your release cadence? How do you get your email list together? Like build that, make that a thing, because most of the guidance out there is crap. You and I both went through that. That's why it took us 3 months to ramp up.
That's very true, because
and there's people with a lot of money that want the attention that a podcast can bring them, and they don't want to go through that pain. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of money a lot of times because they are very efficient with their time, and they will give you some of that money so that they don't have to do this. And so I think that's really a niche business that you could nail that.
Yeah, but would it be enough for a business, or would it be more of something that my business does?
I think it could be enough for a business, to be honest. You charge a premium fee, right? Mm-hmm. You get better quality customers. So you don't go for, Joe Blow's podcast. You get somebody like, I don't know, let's say you got Tim Ferriss's podcast. He's already got one. He's got it all together.
Yeah.
But you get somebody at that level.
Okay.
And then you build it for them. And you maintain it for them. And you charge a monthly fee. And you handle all the crap that goes on. You hook them up with people that do the audio editing.
Gotcha.
Now you have a business.
Yeah, I can see that being a business.
Yeah. That's why I kicked that idea around. And I think if any of the podcast listeners are wanting to start a podcast, get a hold of Beach.
Yeah, especially get a hold of me now, because, before the rates go up.
Your rates should go up before you say that. Just automatically. If you feel like your rates could go up, go on and raise them.
Yeah.
As a rule, that's a good way to go.
Well, that's my goals for 2016. Will, what are yours?
Well, like Beach, I've got a half a dozen. My first one is to get back into a regular meditation schedule. I used to meditate for at least 30 minutes a day, and sometimes on the weekends I would get an hour or two, believe it or not. And I found that kept me a little bit more even emotionally. And it also kind of helped with my focus, because it forced me to get out of the work mindset and all the chaos that I was dealing with, and just be. Mm-hmm. And I think it really helped as far as my productivity. It's weird. It's one of those things where you cut back on the amount of work you do, and then you're more productive because you did that. It's like sharpening your axe.
Yeah.
When you're a lumberjack, or when you're a horror movie character, whichever one.
Well, you look like either, so.
Yeah, it's 50-50, I do. If I were, as an aside, I went on a hunting trip a few years ago, and I had the full beard and the long hair, and my dad was with me, and he hadn't shaved in a week or so as well. And we were in Washington State, and this lady, the place we were staying, we had to go and we had to check out our guns and all that, and we're getting all our crap together and heading out, and we stay at this casino. And so, of course, they have the guns locked up. You got to do that with places with a lot of money. And we're headed to the door, and this lady stops us and takes our picture, because she'd never seen anybody that looked like us. Because we're wearing like the plaid shirts, and we've got the lumberjack beards going on, and we're just all scraggly looking, and it's like we were a tourist stop for her, and she had to take the picture. It was the strangest experience I've ever had, with nobody ever looks at me and goes, I gotta take this guy's picture. At least not that I know of. But yeah, that was very strange.
There's nobody you would want to think that.
Yeah. Anyway, so we've derailed that, but I do want to get back into the regular meditation routine. I do think that will help me a lot. I've got a lot of stress pretty much all the time. I've had a lot of trouble sleeping over the last year, and I think part of that is I've not had sufficient downtime. I've not enforced that on myself, and I believe that would help me quite a bit. And it also dovetails into some longer term goals that I have that I'm not going to bring up just yet. My second resolution is to be able to deadlift 400 pounds by the end of the year. My previous max was 365, but that's been 2 years and some change.
Well, I remember you talked last week about the year that you set your goal for 300, and it was like by February you were already over that.
Yeah, of course, at a certain point when you start getting multiples of body weight, it keeps getting harder.
Yeah.
So the growth curve kind of tapers off a little bit, and plus it's a lot of weight. your body has to be able to build up to take that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something I want to get back to. I really want to get back into a regular workout routine, swinging kettlebells around and, doing squats and doing deadlifts. I'm getting my home gym set up. You've worked out in there. It's kind of messy. I don't have all the flooring in place because I get these rubber mats. They're like the hard mats that you put down on the floor of stables to keep the horses from, walking on concrete all the time and hurting their feet. And it's a 1/2 to 3/4 inch thick hard rubber. And that's so I can drop a 100-pound kettlebell on it. It doesn't crack the concrete.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember when you were setting that up, I came and helped you set a few.
You helped me set up the squat rack.
Yeah. And if you notice with my goals, I didn't mention anything about exercise or weight loss, but all of my goals are to get myself set up so next year I can have those kind of goals.
Yeah. Yeah, it's enabling factors.
Mm-hmm.
And with mine, I'm just I've noticed I've had a little bit of weight gain this year. It's not been real bad. Of course, for a while there, I was actually trying to bulk, and I was squatting and all that. And then I got so busy I didn't have time. I was working from when I woke up until I went to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to get back to it, and so I've got to do a little bit of a cutting routine here. Probably starting in the next few weeks, I'll start cutting back on the carbs and drop some weight first, because that's actually that makes you more insulin sensitive, so it's easier to gain muscle after the fact. So it's one of those biochemistry things you got to play with a little bit. And so I'll be be pushing towards that. Another thing I want to do is start getting into a regular routine of bulk cooking on the weekends. So basically cook on Sunday afternoon for the week.
We have a good friend that lives down in Florida now. That when he and his wife were both in going to school online and working full-time jobs, that's what they did.
Yeah, I want to ease up on that and get a little bit more time.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, I go out to eat pretty much every day at work, or I don't eat.
Yeah.
It's one of those two things. I don't want to eat a sandwich every day. That gets old really, really fast. So I do want some kind of little hot meal during the day, because lunch tends to be my biggest meal. In fact, most days that's the only meal I eat. You see me in here when we do the podcast, I'll eat like a handful of like cashews or something, and then I podcast. That's it.
Yeah,
that's my dinner most nights. A handful of nuts or something.
I think it was this past weekend. You said, I don't really only eat one meal a day, and I was like, that explains so much about the podcast, because I'll come in around 5:30 or 6 to record, and we'll record till like 8 or 9
at least.
At least, and then you'll be like, all right, well, I gotta go get ready for bed, and I'm like, well, I gotta drive home. I'm gonna stop and get something to eat on the way home.
Yeah. And so I need to get into a better routine on that and get where I'm eating breakfast and stuff. I do have a protein shake for breakfast, but that's a drink.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a real protein shake. It's not the way I would make it with protein powder. It's one of those little Atkins things that's next to nothing. But I want to do the bulk cooking thing specifically so that myself, my wife, and my daughter can kind of eat a little bit more healthy. That's the goal there, is to be able to do that, because especially when I'm on a lower carb diet or I'm on a bulking diet, any kind of special diet thing is a lot trickier when you have to cook every night or you have to find something that you can eat. It's a whole lot easier just to have it. Mm-hmm. You do one day a week. And so, I'll probably bulk cook and like cook 2 or 3 things, and, maybe like a pot of chili, and put, half to 3/4 of it in the freezer, and, cook, I'll hard boil eggs, and I'll do, all that kind of stuff. I've been doing a little bit of that now, and I've been experimenting with recipes that I can bulk cook like that. Even made some fairly decent pickled eggs, which, they're supposed to be spicy. They were disappointingly not so, even though they had a lot of habanero in there.
Disappointingly not so for you, or for...
I don't think it would bother anybody.
Okay.
Yeah, I got to tweak that recipe. I'm not sure what went wrong there. But I'll figure that out. I'll figure out how to make them burn me up. I can make salads and stuff like that too.
Well, I remember because you make your own wine.
Which I need to put up 17 gallons of it that I've been putting off for like months.
I came over, it was a few years back. I think it was while I was in med school, and he said, I want you to try this and tell me what you think of it. And you uncorked it, and first sniff, I was like, well, I don't know what you were going for here, but if you got some fish and chips, you made some great vinegar.
Yeah, that was that wine got a little too much. I don't know. I think it was either too much oxygen. It may have also been a little too dry. It may not actually have been vinegar.
Oh, it was vinegar.
Was it vinegary? I never did really try it. I'll let you try it.
I tried it, and another friend of ours tried it, and he agreed.
Yeah, well, if he drank it and didn't like it, that says everything that needs to be said there. Another thing I want to do this next year is finish my book. As we're recording today, I actually finished the outline.
Awesome. This is something I'm really looking forward to because I know I'm going to be one of the proofreaders for it. So I've read a little bit of what you've written on it so far, and I'm really looking forward to reading the rest.
Yeah, so it's going to be about how to get a development career going, how to break into the industry and actually do it in a way that works. Because most people are not doing things that work, or they do things and then they get the junior dev job and then they languish. Mm-hmm. And so this book is intended to kind of help get around that. And obviously this ties in with some of my financial goals as well, because I don't give it away for free.
Yeah.
But I think it will be legitimately helpful for people. So yeah, that's one thing I'm working on. I imagine that's going to be a lot of work. I initially had that scheduled for first quarter next year. I don't think I'm going to hit that, just because of everything else I've got going on. In fact, one of those is a goal I have, which is the goal I had last year, which is finish releasing my side project that I'm working on with a friend, and now we've got 2 other people on it, or at least 3 others, which is Agulous. It's for buying and selling agricultural products online in bulk. Mm-hmm. So, like if a dog food company needs 50 tractor trailer loads of corn, they can go into our app and find it, purchase it, and have it delivered. And there's a whole lot of stuff with futures and all that mess in the mix. So there's a lot of fairly thorny problems with locating things and setting up routes and doing all the stuff that we have to do. And that project is actually, last year, my New Year's resolution was to get that released by late January. And we completely rescoped it, and we actually have twice. And now we've got a much better product that's better targeted to the market. It's mobile first, or responsive first, I guess is the best way to put it. So it's, every page in there is built to handle mobile, because we realized just how many people really need that, especially in, those particular markets. Mm-hmm. And everything is lean. It's fast. We do have people in there using it now.
Nice.
But the thing is, it's almost like what authors tell you about writing a book. Like the bulk of the work is after the first draft. With an application, the bulk of the work is after the release. Mm-hmm. Because there's so many things to do. There's integration points we've got to do. We've got to do a lot of documentation. We've got to get our internal processes where we can scale. There's bugs. There's all kinds of things that we have to deal with. There's a lot of project management pieces. And so I imagine that this is going to chew up a lot of time early in the year. It's chewing up a lot of time right now. Mm-hmm. But I think it's going to be worth it. Especially as a long-term goal. Being part of something fairly large.
I think it's really awesome. I mean, you've let me look at some of it, and it was really cool. Well,
you sat in on some of the design meetings when we kicked it off the October before this one. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year.
It was last year, yeah. It was last October.
It's the time runs together. But you were down here drinking beer with us and working on the whiteboard with us, mm-hmm. and like going through all the bits and pieces. And so I think that's a pretty huge goal, and I've already got a large set of those. And towards making that work, one thing I want to do is start getting into scheduling things better. I've noticed this with the podcast. When we have a regular cycle on this, and everything's predictable. I know what I have to do and when I have to do it. So like, Monday, by 5:00 Monday, I have to have at least one podcast outline done.
Mm-hmm.
And well, sometimes I don't. Sometimes you've got two, and sometimes I have two. But,
yeah.
We know where we are on that. We've discussed it. And then we know that Monday night we're going to be recording. We got to record, one or two podcasts, depending on how everything goes. Sometimes I think we've tried for 3, but I don't know that we've ever pulled that off.
We did once.
We did that one time.
But we got started like right at 5:30.
Yeah.
And we went
till like 11:30 at night.
Yeah, we
it was
went
awful.
Late.
That wasn't a sustainable pace. But we've got a kind of a regular cadence of when things happen, and that's been such a huge relief with this project, because I now know that, okay, if it's not during those times, I don't have to worry about the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And when it is those times, I know it's coming and I can get ahead of things. And I want to start doing that with more stuff. And I want to have my writing time. Right now, part of the reason the book, the outline of the book took so long is because I was not regularly setting time aside. Part of the reason meditation hasn't happened is the same thing. Same thing with weightlifting. Same thing with bulk cooking on the weekends. Like, everything here will be improved by better scheduling and getting control of my task list and making sure that I have sustainable, reasonable goals.
Yeah.
Because I've got this just snowball of stuff that I've got to get through. And I'll get through 1 or 2 things, and then 3 things add on. And so I think if I can schedule things a little bit better, where I don't have that churn and where I don't have that jumping around trying to figure out what I should be doing right now, I think that would really, really help me. And towards that end, I'm going to actually get into Nosby and start probably first thing every morning is setting daily goals, like figuring out on my different projects what I can do today and marking it where I can check it off. And trying to get into the weekly review cycle.
Well, that's something that we will talk about a little later on in the year is time management.
Yes.
And one of the things with time management is getting up and setting daily goals.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I may not need to do that. That may be better done at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's a dispute, and to me, it really depends on
whether you're a morning person or a night owl.
Mm-hmm.
Is what that depends on. Because if you're a morning person, you're going to want to hit it first thing and get things done. Whereas if you're a night owl, you're going to want that last bit of time to get things done, and you want to do your scheduling and your figuring out when you're kind of sluggish.
Exactly.
So that you don't overestimate what you can do for one, and so you don't chew up good time for another. And so I think I'll probably I expect I'll do it at night afterward, because I am a bit more of a morning person.
But see, for me, it's better to do it in the morning because I am a night person.
I've noticed. But I do really think that the way that I schedule is probably a little bit more chaotic than it needs to be. My family doesn't seem to notice, that I need to get stuff done, because there's not a regular cadence, but they know we're recording a podcast if it's Monday night.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
I remember I've come over and your daughter, mind you, she is kind of young, but she was like, Paige, what are you doing here? I'm like, it's Monday night. I come over every Monday night.
Yeah. We try to take over the world. That's what we do. So yeah, I think getting into a more regular routine on a lot of things and really putting calendar reminders and nag warnings and that kind of stuff in place and getting into better habits is probably going to help me a lot.
So, am I Pinky or the brain?
Which one do you think you are?
I think I'm Pinky because Pinky makes things happen.
Yeah. The brain just has ideas.
Exactly. Anyways, well, that kind of wraps up everything for our goals. You guys can follow along as we achieve each one, or have to adjust. Remember, we talked last week about being agile with your goals. We will talk about that and kind of keep you all informed. So before we close everything out, Will, what do you have for us this week for Tricks of the Trade?
Well, this week I've got a tool that I use pretty regularly when I'm testing email functionality. If you're testing, error emails or user registration emails, and you want to make sure that they're going out and they're kind of looking right,
And it's called SMTP for Dev. Obviously, it's still a Windows-only tool. And you can get this at SMTP for that's the number for dev.codeplex.com. And what this is it's basically a lightweight mail server that sits in your system tray. And if you configure your email to point at localhost, which is 127.0.0.1, and send email there, it will show up in this tool. It doesn't ever go out. And so you can use it to test email. When you double click the message in there, if you have an email client that can open it, it will actually open it in the email client. So you can see what it looks like.
Like Outlook would do that, or?
Outlook does it. Thunderbird does it. There's a couple of others. And this is nice because, for instance, at my work right now, we've been testing some email stuff. And because we're not sending it with SMTP, we're actually using a web API that's going through Mandrill, which is a MailChimp thing. And the emails really go out. And because of the way this thing works, when I'm testing it, I'm absolutely crap flooding my coworkers' inboxes. They're constantly, they're losing stuff in their inbox because it's just getting hammered when I'm testing things. Mm-hmm. I can't do anything about it without a whole bunch of effort. Whereas if we were just doing SMTP, I could test it locally and I just change the configuration and we're good. It's a pretty neat little tool. It doesn't, that's all it does. It does that one thing, but it really saves a lot of pain.
If you have a question or comment for us, please email us at neckbeards@CompleteDeveloperPodcast.com. Our theme music is an excerpt from Stand By for Titanfall by Pure Bells, available on SoundCloud and licensed under Creative Commons. The intro music for IoTs is OMFG Hello by Argo Fox and is also licensed under Creative Commons and available on SoundCloud. For references, show notes, and to sign up to our email list, be sure and check out the website at www.CompleteDeveloperPodcast.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at CompleteDevPod and like our page on Facebook to keep up with news about the show. Thanks for listening. See you next time.